Hey friends, and welcome back to English Podcast for Listening and Speaking, where we blend calm stories with beautiful English learning. Tonight, we're walking through an empty train station where nothing moves but your thoughts. Or maybe we're walking barefoot down a quiet road where the sky is wide and the air smells like summer. It's the end of something. The last day of school. The first steps into something new. If you enjoy learning English through slow, immersive stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, or share the podcast, only if it feels right to you. Now, get cozy. Maybe light a candle or pour some tea. And let's begin. The bell rang, not loudly, not like in the movies. It just echoed once through the warm halls, vibrating off the lockers and the tiled floor. It sounded the same as it always had. But this time, it felt different. This time, it meant done. You stood from your desk slowly, letting your chair scrape back just a little. Around you, backpacks zipped and voices rose. Some kids shouted, some laughed, some whispered plans for later. You didn't say much. You just looked out the window where the light was golden and the wind was playing gently with the trees. You slid your shoes off. Not because you were tired. Not because your feet hurt. But because something inside you wanted to feel the ground again. To be closer to the day. To the pavement. To the place that held your walk home. You tied the laces together and slung them around your backpack strap. The shoes bumped lightly against your side as you moved through the door, and then you were outside. The air was soft and thick with warmth. The kind of heat that doesn't press. It just rests. It wraps around your arms and neck like a slow, quiet hug. The sky was wide and blue, with a few clouds hanging like thoughts you hadn't finished yet. The school building stood behind you. Large and square and quiet now. Its windows stared out blankly, as if it was already sleeping. You turned once to look at it. Not because you were sad. Just because it had been a part of your days for so long. And now it wouldn't be. For a while. Maybe longer. Your bare feet touched the sidewalk. And you felt everything. The roughness, the warmth. The tiny stones tucked into the cement. The pavement was alive with sun, and it surprised you. How good it felt, how grounding, how real. Your backpack was lighter than usual. No lunchbox, no notebooks. Just a few scraps of paper and your half-broken pencil case. You'd cleaned out your desk earlier, tossing old assignments into the bin. You'd smiled at some of them. Words in your handwriting that already felt distant, like something another version of you had written. You took a step, and then another, and then you were walking. Not quickly, not slowly, just at the pace your breath wanted. Other kids ran past you, shouting and tossing their bags into the air. Some hopped onto bikes. Some turned down the side street toward the gas station where they'd buy sodas and candy. But you just kept walking. Straight ahead, barefoot. Free! The wind moved through the leaves above you. A dog barked in the distance. Somewhere a lawnmower hummed lazily, but it didn't feel loud. It felt like part of the season, part of the background music of summer arriving. You reached the corner where the crosswalk lines were faded and the traffic light blinked yellow again and again. You didn't need to wait. No cars came. You crossed in silence, your toes curling slightly against the edge of the curb. And then you smiled. Not for anyone, just for yourself, because you had made it. Through the year, through the tests, through the ordinary days and the unforgettable ones, through the boredom and the beauty, through it all. And now you were walking home, into light. Into sky, into summer. You turned left at the corner, where the sidewalk dipped and cracked slightly. Your toes found the edges of old roots pushing up through the concrete, and you balanced there for a moment, like walking a tightrope, just for fun. The sun was higher now, casting dappled shadows through the maple trees lining the street. Their leaves whispered in the breeze, soft green against a perfect blue. Everything around you felt sharper, brighter, more alive, like the world was holding its breath and smiling just for you. Your feet found a patch of color. Sidewalk chalk. It covered the ground in soft pastels, pink flowers, yellow suns, crooked hearts. Names were written in curly letters, phrases too. Class of forever. See you next year, maybe. Freedom! And one in big blue letters. We made it. You stopped walking. You bent slightly and brushed your fingers against the edge of the chalk sun. Some of the powder stuck to your skin, and you watched it catch the light. Laughter floated from behind a wooden fence nearby. A group of classmates, maybe a few blocks away now, still shouting goodbyes and promises. Text me later. We're going swimming tonight. Don't forget me. You weren't part of it. Not today. You were walking alone, but not lonely, just quiet. Present. You passed a house with wind chimes on the porch. They tinkled as you walked by, delicate and unpredictable. Each note different, each one small but meaningful, like little pieces of music made from air. You thought, the wind is singing too. You kept walking. A soft breeze moved across your face, and you closed your eyes just long enough to feel it fully. The sound of it rushed gently through your ears, through your thoughts, through the part of you that was beginning to understand this was a goodbye. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind with tears or speeches, just the soft ending of something you lived every day for months, and now would not return to for a long while. You walked past the old mailbox with stickers on the side, past the yard with the inflatable pool, still half full from last weekend, past the neighbor's car with the dented door and the hanging mirror, each one familiar, each one quietly saying, "You're almost home." But you weren't in a hurry, because home could wait. Summer was already starting, even if the calendar didn't say so yet. And on this street, on this day, your bare feet were writing their own story. With each step, you were saying goodbye. To the classroom, to the clock on the wall, to the smell of books and dry erase markers, to the announcements at 8 a.m., to the packed lunches and hallway noise, to the person you had been just a day ago. A dragonfly darted across your path. You paused to watch it hover. Its wings shimmered like glass in the sunlight, beating so fast you could barely see them. And for a second, it felt like the summer itself had arrived in that shape. Light. Quick. Uncatchable. Then it was gone, and you kept walking. You didn't count the steps. You didn't check the time. You just moved forward, bare feet on warm sidewalk, your heart a little lighter with each block. You thought, I'm going to remember this walk. And somehow you already were. The breeze had settled now, slow and quiet. The street was mostly empty. A few windows were open, curtains breathing in and out with the afternoon air. You kept walking. Barefoot, steady, soft. And the shoes on your backpack swung behind you with each step, thumping lightly against your spine. You could feel the rhythm of it. Left foot, right foot, swing. Left foot, right foot, swing. The pavement beneath you was warm, but not hot. It held the sun's memory gently, like a stone warmed by a palm. You moved slowly, and that was the point. There was no bus to catch, no bell to answer, no teacher waiting at the door. You had been rushing for months, but not today. You passed a garden blooming with tall yellow flowers. Bees hovered, busy but peaceful. You bent slightly to smell one, letting the petals brush against your cheek. The scent was soft and earthy, like sun and soil and time. And still your shoes dangled behind you, still unused. You thought about putting them back on once or twice, but the moment always passed. Your feet were learning the ground again. They were adjusting to the world without soles, feeling cracks and grass and gravel. You didn't mind. It felt like your body was waking up in places it had forgotten to feel. A leaf skittered across the sidewalk in front of you. You didn't step over it. You stepped on it and listened to the crunch. You smiled. Even that sound belonged to the day. You passed a bike lying in the grass, its wheels spinning slightly from a breeze you hadn't felt. Someone had left it there. Mid-adventure. Mid-afternoon. And you could almost hear the voices that had left it behind. You remembered your own bike, its orange frame, the click of the gears, the sound it made on gravel paths. You hadn't ridden it in a while. You thought, maybe I'll ride it tomorrow. Not a plan. Just a dream. Just something the day gave you. Your shadow stretched beside you on the sidewalk, long and soft. You waved at it, quietly. It waved back, of course. You reached a spot where the pavement ended, and for a moment, your feet touched dirt. Cool, damp, unexpected. It sent a little shiver through your body. But you didn't stop. You liked it. It reminded you that the ground was still wild, just beneath the roads. A car passed slowly behind you. The driver glanced your way, then kept going. You imagined what they saw, a barefoot kid walking with no rush, shoes swinging like bells. They might have smiled too. You turned onto your street, and everything there felt like memory already. The bushes, the porch lights, the smell of someone's laundry drying in the sun, the hum of an old radio behind a screen door. You stopped in front of your house but didn't go in right away. Instead, you sat on the curb. The shoes slid off your backpack and landed beside you. You looked at them, dusty, a little tired but still strong, and you whispered, "You're going to rest for a while." You leaned back, hands behind you on the warm concrete, and looked at the sky. It was filled with clouds that didn't want to be anything, just floating, just drifting. And you thought, I was walking home. I was walking away. I was walking toward. And all three felt true. You stood up from the curb slowly, not because your legs were tired, but because something in you wanted to move again. Not toward the house, not toward the porch, just forward. You turned, not thinking, and walked past your front gate, past the sidewalk that always cracked near the bottom step. Your feet moved with soft purpose, and soon you were at the corner where the old shortcut began. The path between fences, the field. You hadn't walked this way in months, not since fall, maybe even longer. But your body remembered it. The way the fence leaned, the way the grass brushed your legs, the way the wind felt different once you left the street behind. You stepped onto the path barefoot. The earth changed, from pavement to packed dirt, from sidewalk to soil. It smelled sweeter here. Grass and sun, dry weeds, something faintly floral from a bush hidden deeper in the field. You walked slowly, arms at your sides. A dragonfly darted by. A bird flapped noisily from a low branch. The world was louder here, but not in a bad way, just more alive. The field opened up around you, golden, wild, forgotten. And you smiled, because this had always been your favorite place to walk barefoot. Even as a kid. Even when you were smaller. Even when the grass was taller than your knees. You stepped carefully now, feeling the uneven ground beneath you. Twigs, soft dirt, the occasional small stone that reminded you to lift your foot just a little higher. The sun was warmer here. The trees no longer blocked it. Your shadow moved with you, long and stretching ahead. The field buzzed gently with insects, the kind that never bite, just hum. You passed wild flowers bent from the heat. You ran your fingers across the tops of tall grass. You touched the fence post at the corner, the one with initials carved into it years ago. Yours were there too. Still, faded but real. You paused, touched the letters, smiled. You were going to forget them one day, weren't you? But not yet. You kept walking. The shortcut curved slightly now, sloping toward the place where the field narrowed and the trees began again. You stepped over a fallen branch. A butterfly crossed your path, landed, then fluttered off again. Everything felt like it was part of your story, like the world itself knew what this walk meant. The end of school! The beginning of something else. Something bigger, something softer, something unknown. You whispered, almost without meaning to, "I'm going to remember this." The breeze answered, not in words, just in the way it moved the grass. You reached the last part of the path, the place where the fence opened again, leading back toward your street. You stood there for a moment, looking back, looking forward, not ready to go inside yet, not ready to end the walk. You turned once more to the field. You looked at your feet, covered in dust now, little grains stuck between your toes, tiny stories gathered from each step. And somehow that made you feel strong, not messy, not lost, just real. You crossed the final bit of earth and stepped back onto pavement. And even though the field was behind you, it stayed with you. The shortcut had changed nothing, but somehow it had changed everything. You followed the sidewalk back toward the house. But your mind was still in the field. Your feet were dusty, your backpack light, and your thoughts. Your thoughts were everywhere. Because now that the year had ended, your imagination had room to stretch. You were dreaming again. Not wild, impossible dreams, but quiet ones. Gentle ones. The kind that don't shout, but glow softly in the corners of your mind. You thought about what summer might look like. Long mornings, cool drinks, bike rides with no direction, books you hadn't opened yet, evenings with music drifting through a screen door. You imagined waking up late, the kind of late that feels earned, the kind where the sunlight has already filled the room and you smile before your eyes even open. You were going to learn to cook something new. Maybe something sweet? Maybe something with cinnamon? You pictured yourself in the kitchen, barefoot again, stirring slowly, humming to no one. You were going to visit your grandparents. You hadn't seen them in a while. You pictured the porch swing, the way it creaked under your weight, the way your grandmother laughed when you told stories from school, the way your grandfather always gave you something small when you left, a button, a coin, a folded note with your name. You were going to swim more. You hadn't gone enough last year. This summer would be different. You imagined the water cooling your skin, the way the sun made patterns on the surface, the weightlessness of floating with your eyes closed. And you were going to write something. You didn't know what, but something. You'd carry a notebook with you this time. Keep it near your bed. Keep it in your backpack when you went walking. You didn't have to show anyone, but the words would come. You could feel them already, lining up quietly, waiting their turn. You passed the neighbor's garden now, bright with marigolds and mint. The smell was sharp, but familiar, comforting. You thought about planting something. Maybe sunflowers, maybe beans, maybe just trying. You didn't need everything to grow. You just wanted to see what could happen if you gave it time. You were going to read poetry under the trees. You were going to press flowers in a book and forget them, only to find them again next year and smile. You were going to build a fort in the backyard, even if you were too old. Because you weren't, not really. You were going to let yourself be curious, be slow, be soft. because the year had asked you to work and try and stay inside the lines. But now the lines were gone, and the sky was full of clouds shaped like possibilities. You looked up again. One of them looked like a kite, one like a boat, one like a window you could step through. You didn't need to choose yet. You were just beginning, and sometimes the beginning is the best part. You stepped through your front gate at last, but you didn't go inside. You sat on the porch instead. The wood was warm beneath you. The air smelled like grass and thyme. And you whispered, "I was dreaming back then." And somehow you still were. Later that evening, the light grew softer. You were sitting on the porch, knees pulled close, the sky slowly shifting from blue to amber. The day was ending, but gently. Not with a door slamming, not with finality. It was drifting, like a song you didn't want to stop, and in the hush of that golden hour, you started thinking about how the day had unfolded, not just in memories, but in the language of it all. You didn't realize it at the time, but the whole walk had been shaped by tenses, moments layered quietly inside your thoughts. You had walked home. That was true. But more than that, you had felt the sun on your back, had passed the chalk messages on the sidewalk, had paused to watch a dragonfly land near your feet. Those past perfect moments came quietly, holding small emotions like folded notes. But while you were walking, you weren't always looking back. You were dreaming too, in real time, while the pavement still warmed your feet. You were thinking about books you might read, letters you might write, quiet mornings you might fill with tea and nothing else. It wasn't just remembering, it was imagining, and that imagination had its own rhythm. You had said to yourself, "I'm going to sleep in tomorrow. I'm going to ride my bike again. I'm going to do nothing and like it." Soft promises to the self, sentences filled with the future. Not the far-away kind, but the next-day kind. The kind you whisper when you're rested and full of sky. You leaned your head back against the wall and looked up again. One cloud was still drifting, shaped like a page turning. And there it was again. That mix of was and going to that had followed you from the last bell. I was going to say goodbye to more people, but I didn't. I was going to cry, but I didn't. I was going to rush home, but I stayed outside. Those phrases weren't regrets, just truths, the quiet reflections that grow out of a slow day. You remembered how your shoes had dangled from your backpack, how your feet had touched every surface with a kind of freedom, how your thoughts had wandered before you even knew what they were becoming. There was grammar in all of it, but not grammar for a test. Grammar for a story, for a season, for a transition between one version of you and another. The you that sat in class, the you that carried your tray in the cafeteria, the you that raised your hand and forgot what you were going to say, and now the barefoot you, the dreaming you, the one who let the day unfold without hurrying. The sky above you faded into deeper shades. A star blinked, just one. You whispered, "This was the last walk home from school." And then, after a breath, "But it's not the last walk I'll take." And there it was, the future tucked inside the past. Not an ending, really, just the next beginning. You stayed on the porch as the day folded itself quietly into evening. The wind had cooled, and the sounds of summer night were beginning to rise. Crickets. The low hum of a neighbor's air conditioner. A distant screen door creaking open, and in the stillness you began to notice the words again, the ones that had followed you all day, not in a lesson, not on a page, but in the rhythm of your walk, the shape of your thoughts, the voice inside your memory. There was sidewalk, warm, cracked, familiar beneath your bare feet, a word that always made you think of summer and movement and space. There was backpack, not heavy this time, just swinging behind you, almost weightless with the freedom of a school year ending. There was chalk in soft blues and pinks, leaving messages that would fade with the next rain, but never really disappear from your mind. You whispered them aloud, slowly. Backpack, sidewalk, sunlight, field, shoes. Each word felt round and full in your mouth, like something soft to hold, like something small that carried something big. You thought about freedom, a word too large for one meaning. But you had felt it today, in the way your toes curled around warm pavement, in the way your breath deepened with each block you passed. You remembered field, how it opened around you like a dream. You'd walked through it like a secret path, the wind brushing your arms, the grasses nodding like old friends. There was clouds, too. Not just in the sky, but in your imagination. Shapes that carried your thoughts into the future. Words made of vapor and hope. You thought about the vocabulary of school. Words like desk, bell, homework, folder, teacher. They were part of you, of course. But today's words felt different. Less structured. More wild. You added more in your mind. Dragonfly. Wine chime. Shadow. Goodbye. Promise. Each one had a memory now, and the grammar, too, had softened into emotion. You thought, I was dreaming. I was walking. I was remembering. Each verb stretching out like a hammock between two trees. You said again, I was going to hurry. But I didn't. I was going to wear my shoes. But I left them off. These weren't just examples. They were pieces of you. You whispered them again, more slowly this time. I was walking through the field when I saw a butterfly. I was thinking about next year as the sun touched my shoulders. And as you sat there on the porch, the day fading behind you, and the stars beginning to show above, you realized something simple. This day had been made of words, not written, not planned, just lived, just walked. And those words, your words, would stay with you. Because vocabulary isn't only learned. Sometimes it's remembered. Sometimes it's found between one bare footstep and the next. Darkness was slowly folding itself over the rooftops. The warm golden glow that had followed you all afternoon had turned to twilight, and still you sat on the porch, barefoot, quiet, remembering. You didn't need to go inside just yet. The wood beneath you was still warm from the sun, and your thoughts were still walking, slowly, back through the day. You whispered the sentence again, just to yourself. I'm going to remember this walk. And you knew it was true, not because something big had happened, but because everything had been small and beautiful. You had walked in silence. You had seen chalk on the pavement, flowers in the cracks. You had passed shadows, held sky in your eyes, let wind brush your face like a soft hand. You had walked barefoot, and the earth had spoken back. You had walked slowly, and the language had come with you, not through books or teachers, but through feeling. Through the past tenses, you whispered to yourself, I was walking through the field. I had left my shoes behind. The chalk was already fading. Through the gentle rhythm of future dreams, I'm going to swim this summer. I'm going to write something that feels like this walk. I'm going to remember this feeling when things get fast again. And through the vocabulary of your own heart, pavement, sky, freedom, goodbye. You thought about writing it all down. Maybe you would. Maybe later. Maybe when the stars were brighter and the house was asleep. For now, you just let it live inside your chest. Soft, quiet, real. You looked up. One star. Then another. You whispered one last time. This was the walk home after the last day of school. And that was all it needed to be. That one sentence held the story. The shoes. The breeze. The thoughts. The bare feet. The sky. The you that walked and watched and wondered. So now, if you'd like, say a sentence of your own. Say it slowly. Just one line from today's story that felt like yours. Maybe. I was walking home and letting go. The pavement was warm beneath my feet. I was dreaming as the clouds drifted overhead. Or write it somewhere. A notebook. a phone, a memory. Let it be a little anchor for your own learning. Because language isn't only about speaking. Sometimes it's about noticing. Sometimes it's about walking slowly enough for the words to catch up. And if you enjoyed this story, I'd love if you followed or shared it with someone else who's learning English. It helps this gentle little podcast reach more people. Until next time, may your dreams be barefoot. May your sentences be soft. And may you always have time for the walk home.